Carol Bennett rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the monitoring screen. Nothing ever happened at Outpost 7. Located at the very edge of the Andromeda Confederacy, this small station only existed to watch the empty space between galaxies. Carol had spent 12 years here, and each day was the same as the last. The station housed 20 crew members from 7 different species. Carol was one of only 3 humans in the entire sector. Most beings thought of humans as ancient history, a footnote in galactic records. "Another exciting day watching nothing," said Ziv, a blue-skinned Makari with 4 eyes who worked at the station next to Carol. "Someone has to do it," Carol replied with a smile. The truth was that Carol liked the quiet. After serving 10 years on crowded trade vessels, the peaceful emptiness of deep space was a welcome change. Her shift would end in 20 minutes, and she was already thinking about the new book she had started. Then she saw it, a tiny blip on her scanner. Carol sat up straight. She adjusted the sensors and ran a quick diagnostic. The blip was still there. "Are you getting anything on your screens?" Carol asked Ziv. The Makari checked his monitors. "Nothing. Why?" Carol didn't answer. She was too busy fine-tuning her equipment. The object was moving at sublight speed, following a direct course toward Confederacy space. It was still months away from reaching their borders, but its trajectory was clear. "Director Ramirez," she called through the intercom, "I need you on the observation deck." Alan Ramirez arrived quickly. The director was a helial, a species from the high-gravity core worlds. His 4 strong tentacles gripped the railings as he moved across the room to Carol's station. His skin changed colors with his emotions, currently a pale yellow of curiosity. "What have you found, Bennett?" he asked. "A ship," Carol said. "Coming from the dead zone." The dead zone was what they called the region of space where Earth and its colonies had once been. No one had come from that direction in thousands of years. Ramirez looked skeptical. "Perhaps a sensor error." "I've run 3 diagnostics," Carol said. "It's real." "Put it on the main screen," Ramirez ordered. The large display at the front of the room lit up with the enhanced image. The ship was old, its design unlike anything in current use. But Carol recognized it immediately. Her heart began to race. "That's..." she began but couldn't finish the sentence. "That's what?" Ramirez asked. "That's a human ship," Carol said quietly. "A human military vessel from before. The silence. The silence was what historians called the sudden disappearance of human civilization more than 20,000 years ago. No one knew exactly what had happened. One day humans were a growing power in the galaxy, and the next, all communications stopped. When other species finally reached Earth and the human colonies, they found only empty cities and dead worlds. Some humans had survived, those who had been traveling on distant ships or living on remote stations. Carol's ancestors were among them, but they numbered only in the thousands, a tiny remnant of a once vast civilization. They had integrated into the Confederacy, becoming just another minority species. "Impossible," Ramirez said, his skin turning a doubtful gray. "That ship would be ancient. No one could survive that long." "I know what I'm seeing," Carol insisted. "Check the historical archives if you don't believe me." Ramirez ordered the station's AI to search the records. Within moments, the computer displayed an old image next to the current scan. "Match confirmed," the AI announced. "The vessel matches design specifications for a United States Navy exploration ship, circa 2300 CE, designated Dauntless class." The room fell silent. Even Ziv had stopped working to stare at the screen. "It's broadcasting something," Carol said, adjusting the communication array. On very old frequencies, she filtered out the background noise of space, focusing the receivers on the approaching vessel. Slowly, a voice emerged through the static. "This is Captain Frank Miller of the United States vessel Dauntless. We are returning home after extended mission. Please respond." The message repeated over and over. "It can't be real," Ramirez said, his skin now a pale white of shock. "The Dauntless was lost during the final years before the silence. It's in the historical records." "Well, it appears to be found now," Carol replied. "Can we respond?" Ramirez asked. Carol shook her head. Not from this distance and not without approval from Central Command. This is way beyond our authority. Ramirez nodded. Send everything to headquarters. Mark it. Priority 1. Should we alert the defense fleet? Asked Ziva. Ramirez considered this for a moment. Yes, but carefully. Emphasize that this appears to be a human vessel of historical significance, not an invading force. Carol sent the reports while Ramirez called an emergency meeting of the station staff. Within an hour, everyone on Outpost 7 knew about the ghost ship approaching from the dead zone. 3 days later, Dr. Eliza Howard arrived at the station. She was the Confederacy's leading expert on extinct civilizations, with a specialty in human studies. Most people thought her field was purely academic. No one expected to need a human expert for a first contact situation. The signal is authentic, Dr. Howard confirmed after analyzing the broadcasts. The speech patterns match 24th century American English, and the ship's design is definitely from that era. But how could it have survived all this time? Carol asked. She had been assigned to assist the doctor with her investigation. I don't know, Howard admitted. 20,000 years is a long time, even for a well-built ship. And there's another problem. The message says they're returning home. They don't seem to know what happened. Carol felt a chill. They don't know that Earth is gone, that humanity fell? Apparently not, Howard said. Which means they've been completely isolated, perhaps in some kind of stasis or time dilation field. The Confederacy Council debated what to do. Some wanted to quarantine the vessel, fearing ancient human technologies. Others argued that the ship should be preserved as a historical artifact, with its crew relocated to research facilities. Carol found herself growing angry at these suggestions. They're people, not specimens, she told Dr. Howard. They're my people. Howard nodded. I agree, and I've convinced the council to let me lead a contact team. We'll board the Dauntless when it's close enough and explain the situation to them. I want to go with you, Carol said immediately. Howard smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. I need someone with both human perspective and Confederacy training. 1 month later, the Dauntless entered scanner range. Detailed images showed a vessel scarred by micrometeor impacts and cosmic radiation, but incredibly it was intact and functioning, and it was not alone. 4 other ships appeared behind it, smaller vessels of similar design but with visible modifications, a small fleet emerging from the darkness of the dead zone. The phantom ships had returned, and humanity's 20,000 years of silence was about to end. The Confederacy moved quickly once they confirmed the ships were real. Within 2 weeks, a fleet of 20 vessels surrounded the Dauntless and its companions. The ships kept a respectful distance, but made their presence known. Dr. Howard led the preparations for first contact from the flagship of the Confederacy fleet. Carol worked closely with her, helping to update translation systems for the old form of English the Dauntless crew would speak. We've established a video link, announced Nathan Lee, the communications officer. He was another human specifically requested by Dr. Howard for this mission. The main screen flickered to life. A man in a faded blue uniform appeared. He had dark skin and short gray hair. His face showed signs of age, but his eyes were alert and intelligent. I am Captain Frank Miller of the United States vessel Dauntless, he said. Thank you for responding to our signal. We've been traveling for a very long time. Captain Miller, Dr. Howard began. I am Dr. Eliza Howard of the Andromeda Confederacy. This is Carol Bennett, also human, and Nathan Lee, our communication specialist. Miller's eyes widened slightly at the mention of the Confederacy. I'm not familiar with the Andromeda Confederacy. When we left, Earth was part of the Solar Alliance. Howard took a deep breath. Captain, there are some things we need to discuss. May we come aboard your vessel? Miller hesitated. We've been isolated. For a long time, Doctor. My people have limited immunity to outside diseases. We would need to take precautions. We understand completely, Howard assured him. We can wear environmental suits and submit to any decontamination procedures you require. Miller nodded. Very well. We'll send docking instructions to your shuttle. After the screen went dark, Admiral John Wright approached. The tall, scaled being was in charge of the Confederacy fleet. Remember your orders, Doctor, he said. Find out where they've been and how they survived, but do not tell them about Earth until we've assessed their reaction. Howard frowned. They deserve to know the truth. In time, Wright said, but we need to ensure they don't pose a threat first. Carol, Howard, and Lee boarded a small shuttle and approached the Dauntless. As they got closer, they could see that the old ship had been modified over time. Solar collectors extended from its sides. Parts of the hull showed signs of repair. Using different materials, they docked at an airlock near the middle of the ship. After a thorough decontamination process, they were allowed inside. A woman in a similar uniform to Miller's greeted them. Lieutenant Patricia Gordon, Chief of Security, she said. Welcome aboard the Dauntless. The interior of the ship was nothing like Carol had expected. The corridors were lined with plants growing in special containers. Lights that mimicked natural sunlight shone from the ceiling. The air smelled fresh and clean. Your life support systems are impressive, Howard commented. Gordon smiled. We've had generations to perfect them. This way, please, the captain is waiting. Carol was confused. Generations? Yes, Gordon replied. I'm the great-granddaughter of Marilyn Gordon, who was the original security officer when the Dauntless left Earth. They were led to a large room that must have once been a meeting area but now resembled a garden. Trees grew in large pots, and vines climbed up the walls. In the center was a table made from what looked like repurposed metal. Captain Miller sat at the head of the table. With him were several other people, all wearing variations of the same uniform. Thank you for coming, Miller said. Please sit. Once they were seated, Miller introduced his officers. This is Samuel Cooper, our historian, Greg Powell, chief engineer, and Linda Martinez, our doctor. Captain, Howard began carefully, we have many questions about where you've been and how you've survived. As do we, Miller replied. Starting with what year it is by Earth reckoning. Howard glanced at Carol, then back to Miller. By the old Earth calendar, it would be approximately the year 24,225. The room fell silent. Cooper, the historian, dropped the tablet he was holding. That's impossible, Gordon said. That would mean that over 20,000 years have passed since your ship left Earth, Howard confirmed. Is that not what you expected? Miller's face showed only mild surprise. We knew time had passed, but not that much. Our calculations suggested perhaps 1,000 years at most. Where have you been, Captain? Carol asked. Miller looked at Cooper, who nodded slightly. We were testing a new form of faster-than-light travel, Miller explained. Something went wrong during our test. We found ourselves in what our scientists eventually determined was a pocket dimension, a bubble of space-time separate from normal space. Cooper spoke up. Time moved differently there. For us, only about 200 years have passed. 200 years, Lee repeated. You've been living on this ship for 200 years? Yes, Miller said. We had no choice. We couldn't return to normal space until we developed the technology to do so. That took generations. We've maintained our mission and our culture, Gordon added proudly. Each generation learning from the last, each working toward getting home. Howard leaned forward. And the other ships? Built in the pocket dimension, Powell explained. We found resources there. Asteroids, comets. Not much, but enough to eventually build smaller vessels. We needed them to expand our living space as our population grew. How many of you are there? Carol asked. 187 across all 5 ships, Miller said. We started with a crew of 52. Carol's mind was racing. These were humans who had been living completely apart from the rest of the galaxy for generations. They had preserved Earth culture as it was 20,000 years ago. They were living history. Miller's expression turned serious. Now, Dr. Howard, I have a question for you. Where are the Earth ships? Why did it take so long for anyone to respond to our signal? And why is there something called the Andromeda Confederacy instead of the Solar Alliance? Howard looked uncomfortable. Captain Miller, there's something important we need to discuss about Earth and what's happened since you left. Miller's eyes narrowed. What aren't you telling us, Doctor? What happened to Earth? Before Howard could answer, an alarm sounded. Throughout the ship, Gordon jumped to her feet and went to a nearby console. Captain, she said urgently, we're detecting movement from the Confederacy fleet. Several vessels are powering up weapon systems. Miller stood. Is this some kind of trap, Dr. Howard? No, Howard protested. I don't know what's happening. The communication device on Howard's wrist buzzed. It was Admiral Wright. Doctor, return to the shuttle immediately, he ordered. We've detected energy readings from the human ships that match weapons charging. We're not charging weapons, Miller insisted, having overheard the message. Carol looked at Gordon. Are you sure? Gordon checked her console again. No weapons are active, but she paused. Our dimensional stabilizers are running at full power. They might be misreading the energy signature. Carol relayed this to Wright, but the Admiral wasn't convinced. Return now or we'll be forced to take action, Wright said. Howard stood up. Captain Miller, I promise we'll sort this out, but we need to leave now to prevent any misunderstandings. Miller nodded grimly. Go, but tell your Admiral that we came in peace, we just want to go home. As they hurried back to their shuttle, Carol couldn't help but wonder how Miller and his crew would react when they learned the truth about their home. And she worried about what would happen if the Confederacy decided these humans from the past were a threat that needed to be eliminated. The tension between the Confederacy fleet and the human ships lasted for 3 days. Admiral Wright refused to believe that the energy readings were not weapons. Captain Miller refused to shut down the dimensional stabilizers that kept his ships from slipping back into the pocket dimension. Carol worked tirelessly to convince the Admiral that the humans posed no threat. She spent hours explaining what she had seen on the Dauntless. These people just want to go home, she told Wright. They don't even know what happened to Earth yet. Finally, Dr. Howard proposed a solution. Let Greg Powell, their engineer, come to our ship and explain how the stabilizers work. And let one of our engineers visit the Dauntless to verify his claims. The Admiral reluctantly agreed. Powell arrived on the Confederacy flagship the next day. He was a tall man with red hair and a beard streaked with gray. He brought technical drawings and data from the stabilizers. The technology works by creating a field that anchors us to this dimension, Powell explained to the gathered officials. Without it, we risk being pulled back into the pocket dimension we escaped from. The Confederacy engineers studied his information. After several hours, they confirmed that the energy signature was indeed not from weapons. We owe you an apology, Mr. Powell, Admiral Wright said stiffly. Powell shrugged. You were being cautious. I understand. But now we need to talk about going to Earth. The room grew quiet. Dr. Howard glanced at Carol, then back to Powell. There's something you need to know first, Howard said gently. She activated a display showing the Milky Way galaxy. A section near one of the spiral arms was highlighted in red. This is where Earth was located, Howard said. And this is what we call the dead zone now. Powell frowned. Was located? What do you mean? Howard took a deep breath. About 20,000 years ago, all communication from Earth and its colonies suddenly stopped. When other species eventually went to investigate, they found empty cities and dead worlds. Powell's face paled. Are you saying Earth is gone? Everyone is dead? We don't know exactly what happened, Howard continued. Records from that time are incomplete. The most accepted theory is that humans developed artificial intelligence that somehow turned against them. But there are still humans, Carol added quickly. Like me and Nathan, our ancestors were off-world when it happened. There are about 10,000 of us left, spread throughout the Confederacy. Powell sat down heavily. 10,000? Out of billions? I'm sorry, Howard said. Earth itself is still there physically, but it's a protected memorial world now. No one lives there. Powell was silent for a long time. Then he looked up, his eyes hard with determination. I need to take this information back to my captain. When Powell returned to the Dauntless, Captain Miller called a meeting of all crew members old enough to understand. Carol, Howard, and Nathan were invited to attend and answer questions. The large garden room was packed with people. Some sat on chairs, others stood along the walls. Children were sent to another area of the ship with a few adults to watch them. Miller explained what they had learned about Earth and the fate of humanity. A stunned silence followed his words. "Are you certain?" asked Linda Martinez, the ship's doctor. "Could there be some mistake?" "I've seen the historical records," Powell confirmed, "and I've viewed current scans of Earth. It's uninhabited." "What about our families?" someone called out. "Our homes?" "Gone," Miller said simply. "For 20,000 years. Carol watched as the crew of the Dauntless absorbed this devastating news. Some cried quietly. Others looked angry or confused. But none of them panicked or broke down completely. After allowing time for the initial shock to pass, Miller spoke again. "We always knew that things would be different when we returned. We prepared ourselves for change. This is more change than we expected, but we will adapt as we always have." Samuel Cooper, the historian, stood up. "Captain, I have a request. If Earth is now a memorial, can we visit it? Can we see our homeworld one last time?" Miller looked at Howard. "Is that possible?" Howard hesitated. "Earth is strictly protected. No landings are permitted without special authorization from the Confederacy Council." "Then we request that authorization," Miller said firmly. "We may be the last humans who remember Earth as it was. We deserve a chance to say goodbye." "I'll take your request to the Council," Howard promised, "but I can't guarantee they'll agree." After the meeting, Carol stayed on the Dauntless. She wanted to learn more about these humans from the past and their life in the pocket dimension. "Patricia," Gordon showed her around the ship. They visited the hydroponics bays where food was grown, the school where children learned, and the memorial wall where the names of those who had died during their long journey were recorded. "How did you survive all this time?" Carol asked. 200 years on a spaceship seems impossible. "We adapted," Gordon replied. "The pocket dimension had resources we could use. Asteroids, ice, radiation we could convert to energy. We built everything we needed and learned to recycle everything." They stopped at a viewing window. The stars outside looked strange to Carol, slightly shifted from their normal patterns due to the different perspective of the Dauntless. "The hardest part wasn't survival," Gordon continued. "It was keeping hope alive. Each generation was born farther from Earth with less connection to it, but we never forgot our mission to return home, and now home is gone," Carol said softly. Gordon was quiet for a moment. "Not gone. Changed. Just as we have changed. We're not the same humans who left Earth all those years ago. We've evolved in our own way." "What will you do now?" Carol asked. "That's up to the captain and the ship's council," Gordon said. "But I think we'll find a new home. Maybe we can settle on one of the old colony worlds if they're habitable. Or you could join the rest of us," Carol suggested. "The human communities in the Confederacy would welcome you." Gordon smiled slightly. "Perhaps. But we've been independent for a long time. It might be hard to change that." Later that evening, Carol met with Miller in his private office. Unlike the rest of the ship, this room held few plants. Instead, it contained books, hundreds of actual paper books preserved in sealed cases. "These are our most precious possessions," Miller explained, seeing her surprise. "The knowledge and stories of Earth passed down through generations." "Captain," Carol said, "I want to help your people. Whatever you decide to do next, I want to be part of it." Miller studied her for a moment. "Why? You don't know us." "Because you're human," Carol said simply. "Because what you've accomplished is incredible. And because I think the galaxy needs to remember what humanity was capable of." Miller nodded, slowly. "Thank you. We may need allies in the days ahead." As Carol prepared to return to the Confederacy ship, a message arrived from Dr. Howard. The Council had made their decision about the Dauntless crew's request to visit Earth. The message from Dr. Howard was brief. "Council approved limited visit to Earth, 5 people only, 3 days maximum, meeting tomorrow to discuss details." Carol brought the news to Captain Miller right away. His weathered face showed little emotion, but his eyes lit up with hope. 5 people is not many, Miller said. Choosing who goes will be difficult. I understand, Carol replied. But it's more than I expected. The Council rarely allows anyone to visit Earth. The next day, representatives from the Dauntless met with the Confederacy officials. Dr. Howard explained the strict rules for the Earth visit. You will land only at the approved site, she said. You cannot take anything from Earth or leave anything behind. Your shuttle will be scanned before and after to ensure compliance. Admiral Wright added, a Confederacy observer must accompany you at all times. This is non-negotiable. Miller nodded. We accept these terms. When can we leave? In 2 days, Howard replied. That will give us time to prepare the proper permits and equipment. After the meeting, Miller gathered his ship's council to select the 5 people who would visit Earth. The discussion lasted for hours. Everyone wanted to go, but only 5 could be chosen. In the end, they selected Captain Miller as their leader, Patricia Gordon for security, Samuel Cooper to document the visit, Linda Martinez to collect medical data, and Greg Powell to operate their shuttle. Carol was assigned as the Confederacy observer. She was happy about this. She had never been to Earth herself, though her family kept old stories about it alive. The day before departure, Carol helped the Earth team prepare. They needed special environmental suits that would protect Earth from any outside contamination. These suits will monitor everything around you, Carol explained. They'll record video, take air samples, and measure radiation levels. Will we be able to touch the ground? Cooper asked. To feel Earth beneath our feet? Yes, Carol assured him. The suits have sensitive gloves that allow you to feel pressure and texture while still maintaining the protective barrier. That evening, the crew of the Dauntless held a ceremony. All 187 people gathered in the largest open space on the ship. They sang old songs about Earth and shared stories passed down through generations. Miller addressed his people. Tomorrow, 5 of us will see what we have all dreamed of, our ancestral home. We go not just for ourselves, but for all of you, for those who came before us and kept this ship alive, for those who never gave up hope of returning. Carol was moved by their unity and purpose. These humans had survived isolation and hardship for centuries, all while working toward a single goal. Now that goal had changed, but their spirit remained unbroken. The next morning, the small shuttle departed from the Dauntless. Powell piloted it skillfully through the Confederacy blockade. The blue-green sphere of Earth grew larger in their view screen. It looked so peaceful, Martinez commented, so alive. The ecosystem has recovered remarkably well, Carol explained. Without human industry, nature reclaimed the land. Many species that were endangered have thrived. As they entered the atmosphere, Cooper recorded everything on his tablet. His hands trembled slightly with emotion. We're approaching the landing site, Powell announced. Old coordinates match a place once called Central Park in New York City. The shuttle descended through clouds. Below them, they could see a vast green space surrounded by crumbling structures. The remains of tall buildings stood like broken teeth against the sky. Powell landed the shuttle in a clearing. For a moment, no one moved. They all stared through the windows at the world outside. We're home, Miller said quietly. They put on their environmental suits and exited the shuttle one by one. Carol went first to check that conditions were safe. The others followed slowly, almost reverently. The first step onto Earth's soil was emotional for everyone. Cooper fell to his knees. Martinez wept inside her helmet. Gordon stood perfectly, still absorbing everything. Miller walked a few paces forward, then turned to look back at his companions. We made it, he said simply. They spent the day exploring the area around the landing site. New York City was now a forest, with trees, growing through the remains of streets and buildings. Animals watched them curiously from a distance. Birds flew overhead. Cooper collected images of everything. The children need to see this, he said. They need to know where we came from. Martinez used her equipment to analyze plants and soil. The radiation levels are normal, she reported. The air is cleaner than our historical records indicate it was in our time. Gordon found the remains of a small building with a metal plaque still attached. She cleaned it carefully to read the inscription. This was a memorial, she told the others, dedicated to the people who died in some kind of attack. It's dated 2001. So much history, Miller said, all lost now. As the day ended, they gathered on a small hill that offered a view of the surrounding area. The setting sun painted the overgrown ruins in golden light. What do you think happened? Gordon asked Carol. To humanity, I mean. Do you really think it was artificial intelligence? Carol sighed. That's the most accepted theory. The records show that humans were developing very advanced AI around that time. Some historians believe it turned against its creators. But no, one knows for sure? Miller pressed. No, Carol admitted. There are other theories. Some think it was a war with another advanced species. Others believe humans might have evolved into something else entirely and left. Cooper looked thoughtful. In our ship's library, we have old stories about the singularity, a point where technology would advance beyond human control or understanding. Our ancestors worried about it. Perhaps their fears were justified, Martinez said softly. They returned to the shuttle as darkness fell. According to their permit, they would have 2 more days to explore. Tomorrow they would visit the remains of Washington, D.C., and on the 3rd day they would see the Grand Canyon. That night, as the others slept on the shuttle, Miller asked Carol to join him outside. They stood beneath the stars, looking up at the unfamiliar constellations. 20,000 years had shifted the patterns in the night sky. What will happen to us now? Miller asked. After our visit is over? That's up to you, Carol replied. The Confederacy will likely offer you citizenship and a place to settle. Your knowledge of old Earth is valuable. Miller was quiet for a moment. And what about Earth? Will it always remain empty? That's been the policy for thousands of years, Carol said. But things can change. My people need a home, Miller said, firmly. Not just a place to live, but a place that means something to them. For generations, that place has been Earth. Are you suggesting, Carol began. I'm suggesting that perhaps it's time for humans to return home, Miller said. Not to rebuild the civilization that destroyed itself, but to start something new, something better. Carol looked at the ruins of New York, now peaceful under moonlight. The idea was revolutionary, and likely to face strong opposition from the Confederacy Council. But as she stood on Earth's soil for the first time in her life, she couldn't help but feel a connection to this world. It won't be easy, she warned. Miller smiled slightly. Nothing worth doing ever is. The 3 days on Earth passed quickly. The small group visited the remains of Washington, D.C., where trees grew through the crumbled dome of the Capitol building. They stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon, which looked much the same as it had 20,000 years ago. On their final evening, they camped near the ocean on what had once been the California coast. As they watched the sunset over the water, Miller shared his idea with the whole group. I believe we should ask the Confederacy to let us settle on Earth, he said. The others looked surprised. Is that even possible? Martinez asked. They said, Earth is protected. Rules can change, Miller replied, especially when the situation changes. Humanity coming back after 20,000 years is certainly a change. Cooper nodded slowly. Our people have dreamed of Earth for generations. It's in our songs, our stories, our very identity. Gordon was more practical. But where would we live? How would we survive? We've spent our entire lives on ships. We'd start small, Miller explained. One settlement in a suitable location. We'd use what we've learned about sustainable living in space and apply it here. The Council will never agree, Carol warned. Earth's protected status is one of the oldest and strictest laws in the Confederacy. Miller looked at her intently. Then help us change their minds. When they returned to the Dauntless, Miller called a meeting of all adults on the ship. He described what they had seen on Earth and proposed his plan for resettlement. The crew was divided. Some were excited about the possibility of living on the planet their ancestors had come from. Others were nervous about leaving the ships that had been their homes for generations. "We don't have to decide immediately," Miller told them. "But we should begin discussions with the Confederacy." Carol returned to the flagship to report on the Earth visit. She found Dr. Howard in her office reviewing data from the expedition. "They want to resettle Earth," Carol said without preamble. Howard looked up sharply. "That's impossible. The Council would never permit it." "Maybe they should," Carol replied. "These humans preserved Earth's culture for 200 years while trapped in another dimension. They've earned the right to be heard." "You're advocating for them now?" Howard asked. "Yes," Carol admitted. "After seeing them on Earth, watching their connection to it, it felt right, like they were supposed to be there." Howard sighed. "The Council meets tomorrow to discuss the Dauntless situation. Miller can present his request then, but don't expect a favorable response." The next day, Miller and Gordon attended the Council meeting. The chamber was large, with seats for representatives from 50 different species. Miller stood before them, his blue uniform a stark contrast to the colorful robes of the Council members. "Honored Council," he began, "I come to you with an unusual request. My people wish to establish a settlement on Earth." A murmur of surprise ran through the room. "Impossible," said Councillor Vix, a tall being with translucent skin. "Earth is a protected memorial world. No settlements are permitted." "I understand your concerns," Miller continued, "but circumstances have changed. Humans have returned." "A small group of humans," another councillor pointed out. "Less than 200. 200 humans who kept Earth's culture alive for generations," Miller replied. "We are the direct descendants of those who left Earth before its fall. We have preserved knowledge, stories, even plants and animals from Earth." Dr. Howard stepped forward. "If I may, councillors, I've studied the records of Earth's protection laws. They were created to preserve what remained of human civilization after the extinction event. But the intention was never to keep humans themselves from returning." Councillor Diane Foster, a hybrid descendant of early human-alien contact, spoke up. "Captain Miller, what exactly are you proposing?" "A single settlement," Miller explained. "In an area with minimal ruins. We would live simply, using sustainable methods we developed in space. We would protect Earth's recovered ecosystem, not harm it." The debate continued for hours. Some councillors were firmly opposed, citing the sanctity of memorial worlds. Others were curious about the idea of humans returning to their home planet. Finally, Foster proposed a compromise. Perhaps a trial settlement could be permitted, a small area, strictly monitored, with regular reviews of its impact. The council voted. The result was close, but in the end, Foster's proposal passed. Miller returned to the Dauntless with the news. The crew celebrated their victory, though it was only a first step. There would be many challenges ahead. Over the next few months, plans for the settlement took shape. A location was chosen in what had once been New Zealand, an area with abundant resources and minimal ruins. 100 volunteers from the Dauntless crew would form the first group of settlers. Carol decided to join them. She requested a transfer from her Confederacy post to serve as a liaison between the new settlement and the Council. "Are you sure about this?" Howard asked her. "Living on Earth won't be easy." "I'm sure," Carol replied. "For the first time in my life, I feel connected to something bigger than myself. This is human history being made." On the day of the landing, the settlement ship descended through Earth's atmosphere. Below them, the chosen site waited, a green valley surrounded by mountains with a river running through it. Miller stood at the front of the ship, watching through the view screen. Carol was beside him. "We're making history today," she said. Miller nodded. 20,000 years of silence, and now humanity speaks again. The ship landed softly on a flat area near the river. The settlers disembarked slowly, carrying seeds and tools and hopes for the future. They named their settlement New on that evening, as the sun set over their new home. Miller addressed the gathered settlers. Our ancestors left Earth long ago, never expecting to return. For generations, we lived between the stars, preserving what we could of our heritage. Now we have come full circle. We are not the same humans who left. We are changed by our journey. And Earth is changed too. He gestured to the wild beauty around them. We must learn from the past. The civilization that was here before destroyed itself through greed and carelessness. We will build something different, a society that lives in harmony with this world, not in conflict with it. Carol watched as the settlers cheered Miller's words. This small group of humans, lost for 20,000 years in a pocket of space-time, had returned against impossible odds. Now they would write a new chapter in humanity's story. In the weeks that followed, other humans from across the Confederacy began to arrive, first as visitors, then as settlers themselves. They brought new skills and perspectives to New Dawn. The phantom ship that had crossed the stars had done more than just return from the void. It had rekindled humanity's connection to its birthplace and opened the door for a second chance. For 20,000 years, humanity had been silent. Now, their voice would be heard again among the stars,